Hey everybody, welcome back to Big Red EDC. Well, I tell you what, this has been a lot of fun. Well, I knew really nothing about Arthur Wright and Son. Let's say a couple weeks ago. Of course, I've heard of them. Knew they were big in Sheffield, England. That basically the knife capital of the UK, and that was about it. To be perfectly honest with you. But then our good friend at Neo Valley gets a hold of me and he says, hey, I've got some Arthur Wright and Son knives that I think you might like checking out. And I'm like, absolutely, I definitely want to take advantage of that opportunity. So that's what we have in front of us. Neil has very generously sent us 3 Arthur Wright and Son knives to check out. And this is it's definitely a learning experience for me, and maybe it might be a little bit of a learning experience for some of you. Now, I know some of you are, pretty hip to what's going on with Arthur Wright and Son, but I wasn't. So I really am glad and really thankful to Neil that I got this opportunity. I guess Arthur Wright and Son has been around since like 1947. Which is pretty cool. Now, it was recently bought, I think it was 2022, that Michael Harrison and his son Ashley, they purchased the business and are now making the knives. It's them and maybe a couple other people at the most that are hand making all these knives, which is really cool. I think that's awesome. They're using the classic machinery and everything that was used, and I think that's pretty awesome. Now, from what I understand, all of these knives are C70 carbon steel, and the top 2 are more of traditional of what you're going to see coming out of Arthur Wright. Work knives, absolutely. We're going to take a little bit more in-depth look. And then this one is actually Ashley Harrison custom. And it does sound like they're going to start selling more of the premium side like this. The little bit, dare I say, a little bit better quality. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get into these. I mean, this is an Ashley Harrison custom. It's a custom build. Apparently, this was in Patty's potato peelers. I'm going to get these out of here, and we're going to look at this one. This one was in his collection. He actually donated it to a raffle when Randy's Wasteland, the survival guide, passed away, to help raise funds for the family and stuff, which was very cool. Shout out to Patty for doing that. Very cool of him. This is a really nice looking knife. We've got the polished bolsters, polished blades. You've got burl wood. I mean, the grain in that burl wood is really cool. I mean, pins are... Look at the file work. File work on that. Looks like brass liners. But just some really cool grain in this gun stock pattern. The pull on this one, no half stop. As you noticed, we've definitely got a polished blade. You can see that there. Now, if you check out here, I don't know if you can make that. It's kind of hard to read. But it looks like Arthur Wright, Sheffield, but no half stop, but good spring. I'd say that's probably you see how it snaps back really nice? I'd say that's probably 5.5-ish, getting maybe onto a 6. The walk and talk is very nice. And like I said, this is a custom made knife. But it does sound like Arthur Wright and Son is going to start putting out more premium knives. Now, what exactly premium means is probably better quality, maybe like the polished bolsters and, the burl wood and stag and that type of stuff. If you look at some of they're not really available here in the U.S. from what I could see. There's maybe 1 or 2 people that actually import them. These are made as work knives. For the most part, for, UK legal. So, but this is a really gorgeous knife. For sure. Again, shout out to Patty for doing that. Patty's awesome. And, DSKFS, helping some people out. Now, we do have a couple of these, which I guess probably represent more of their standard production knife. And, you know, you got this big lamb's foot here. That's one of them. And then this one, well, this one was actually, let's talk about this one real quick. Because this one was actually done as a club knife for Patty's potato peelers. I think there was like 100 of them made. Nice little Warney blade. I'm not 100% sure what the wood is on this one, but you've got the wood grain. It's got some nice looking wood grain. Pins are done very nicely. The green liners, brass liners. Now, I will note the pull on this one is probably close to a 7. And going from the half stop, it's got a nice half stop. Nice kick to it. But going from that half stop to open, oof, yeah, it's very, very solid. Now, if you're one of those people that are really concerned about, you know, a slip joint coming shut on you, I tell you what, that's a nice, solid spring. Now, on this one and this other lamb's foot that I'm going to show you, I did notice one thing. You know, we do have, you know, there's a decent amount of gapping going on back here. Now, I am completely going off of what I know, what I've heard. And, you know, it did surprise me. It did surprise me to see that gapping. Now, we're talking about knives that are probably in the, you know, I forget, what did he say? He bought, I think he said 52 pounds for this one. So, I mean, that's what, 40-ish bucks, right around there? You know, something like that. But nice little sway back pattern. But I was surprised to see that gapping. Now, when I talk to people, you know, like Baxter's Blades and Neil himself, you know, it's really solid going to that from the half stop. The half stop to open is probably at least an 8. But, you know, that's not uncommon. Now, again, you're talking about there's maybe 2, 3, possibly 4 people that touch these knives. So they're all handmade with original equipment. So I do kind of understand that. It was just a surprise to me. I'm definitely not knocking, you know, the production of these knives. It was just, I don't know, it was surprising to me. I did not expect that when I saw it. Now, like I said, this one was a club knife, and, you know, Patty's potato peelers, again, we're talking a lot about Patty. Well, obviously, he's a big guy in the knife world in the UK. Awesome gent. I hope he does those again, because that's kind of cool. I really I think that's pretty cool that he does that. Now, we're going to look at this big lamb's foot again. And again, see, like I was saying, you know, we're seeing a decent amount of gapping, and both of them, it's just on one side. Now, the pins and everything are done very well. They're pinned in very nicely. Now, I know Neil did say when he got this one, it took some work. It took some work. He said he spent a bunch of time trying to flush out the pivot and try to get it again. There's no half stop on this one. But that spring, the spring tension alone, again, if you're worried about a slip joint coming closed on you, yeah, please don't with these. Please don't worry about it, because they are not easy to close. It's got great walk and talk. The snap is fantastic. Again, that pulls a 7 to an 8. Nice lamb's foot blade. Now, this one's a decent sized knife. How big is this one? It's a little over 7 inches, 7 1/4. Let's check out the Patty's club knife. Let's see where that's coming in at. That one's definitely smaller. That one's coming in at, what's that? 6 1/4. Yeah, right about 6 1/4. Now, to be UK legal, we're talking 3-inch blades, right? That definitely fits in the UK legal. And that one, now, I wonder if they're talking, I measure blade length, you know, from where that handle ends, and that's a little over, so I think we're talking cutting edge. Because a cutting edge is definitely less than 3 inches. It's about 2 3/4. So, but like I said, I was really, really kind of surprised to see the gapping on these. Now, when I mentioned that, you know, to people, you know, like Baxter's Blades and so on and so forth, you know, he's like, hey, these are meant to be work knives. They're not meant to necessarily be pretty and to, you know, stun the onlooker. Which, I tell you what, I have no doubt saying that these are going to be solid. I use them a little bit. They're not mine. They're Neil's. I was respectful to his collection. I have no doubt in my mind these are going to be terrific work knives. Without a doubt. 100%. So, you know, like I said, they're not overly expensive. Now, if they start doing the premium line, I did look on a couple of sites, and, you know, there were knives there. There were some stag knives and stuff like that. Sold out, of course. But the prices were, you know, we're talking 150, 160. It had the dollar sign, so I'm guessing that is US dollars. But, so they are starting to do it. And the premium, like this, you know, if the premium line is done like this, okay, I can kind of get it. Now, when we start creeping up into the higher, and this is just me, and I don't know, I might get some nasties on this, but, you know, when we start getting into that higher price range, the gapping and stuff like that, for me, kind of has to go. You know, I get it. Like I said, there's only a couple of people that are actually touching these knives and making them, and I wholeheartedly give props to the Harrisons for, you know, taking over Arthur Wright and continuing that legacy. That's fantastic. That is fantastic for sure. So, you know, they here he said, I made some notes, guys. Please trust me, I made notes. Their entry models start out at about 36 pounds, so you're talking probably, I don't know the conversion rate right now, but you know, that 30-ish dollars, maybe a little bit less, right around there. You know, for a good solid work knife, you know, C70 carbon steel, yeah, they might have a little bit of gapping to them, but you know what? I'll take a little bit of gapping for a knife that performs. And performs really well. You know, especially in the UK, where their laws are so stringent. You know, here in the US, I think we get a little hoity-toity, and, you know, like I'm saying, like I said about the gapping, it just surprised me. You know, because I'm not used to that. Of course, we see that, you know, on some $10, $12 knives. Yeah, but once we start getting into the little bit pricier-ish knives, that tends to go away, unless you're cased. But anyway. Sorry, had to get that jab in there. So yeah, I totally appreciate Neil sending these out, giving me the opportunity to, in a way, kind of forcing me to learn more about Arthur Wright, which I definitely appreciate, and I like it a lot. I'm a little bit, I'll say a little bit, smarter on Arthur Wright and Son knives now. For sure. And it's all due to Neil, and I really, really appreciate you, my friend. I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to do that, for sure. So, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. It was definitely a learning experience for me, which, I mean, that's part of the fun about doing this, guys, is learning about new things. You know, we got new stuff, new knives coming out all the time, blah, blah, but this is a little piece of history, of knife history. And to learn more about it and to take it in, I really have to thank Neil for that opportunity. And of course, I need to thank you guys for stopping by and checking them out with me. As always, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, leave me that comment. You know I love talking to you. Until next time, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.